Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no coping. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hey everyone, this is a friendly reminder that we are here for entertainment purposes only. We may not even be that entertaining at times, but this is not medical advice. Talk to your doctor, check with your healthcare professionals before making any lifestyle changes or medicine changes. What we're talking about is our clinical experience and what we've seen. And so if you really want our advice, you can consult us. You can actually consult me as a doctor, or you can consult my guest and get all your questions answered. But we can't give free medical advice because we can't pay our bills with that, but we can help to educate you a bit and allow you to think a little bit, and always reach out to your medical professional before making any lifestyle changes. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I want to thank my sponsors again, Keto Mojo and Health Code. They're doing some great stuff, both great companies. Very honored to be sponsored by them, and I'm thankful that they can bring us these great stories. It's February already. That means our New Year's resolutions are now, we're saying, do we really want to keep doing this? How are we going to stay on that track? So both of these companies will help us stay on track. Keto Mojo, of course, being able to check your ketones and glucose levels and make sure your diet is doing what it's supposed to be doing. A lot of people just finished their carnivore month, so it'll be fun to see what their labs look like and what their sugars are doing. And so Keto Mojo, keto-mojo.com, it's a valuable tool. I use them all the time to double check our continuous glucose monitors and to monitor ketone levels. I've been having a lot of fun with some friends lately, experimenting a bit with them and their lifestyle changes. And I do see that Jason Fung is correct. When people do a little bit of an extended fast, their ketones do go up. So it's been great to see that and getting people healthier. And also along that same path, we have our friends from Health Code, Get Health, GETHLTH.com. MetHealth is a discount code that we worked out for our listeners. Get a discount for the best nutrition around. They even have a vegan option and also a 20-year shelf life on their metal cases, vacuum sealed, for those of us who are doomsdayers and worried about the end days. So all you need is a little water in that, and that's all you got. You don't have to eat dehydrated, terrible food that's not even healthy for you. You might as well get some good health and enjoy your time if things go south. So thank you again, both my sponsors, and enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome back to the Life's Best Medicine podcast. I have a return guest today, Leah Koskinen. She's my PA here, she learns all the stuff that I don't know anything about. So Leah, welcome. Good to have you back.
Thanks so much for having me back. I'm excited.
I should let people know this is the Life's Best Medicine podcast. I think I got so excited to even say that. So yes, welcome back to Life's Best Medicine. Leah, educate us on the bane of my existence here, hormone stuff. So Leah has expertise in low carb, ketogenic diets, different lifestyle, changes and stress. And the poor thing has been under my tutelage for a while now, and we've been kind of comparing notes. And one of my areas that I just really haven't dived into in depth was hormones, because it's like, it is so, to me, it's so complicated. It's like, okay, the cycles and all this stuff, and that's why most of the studies are done in men, because they go, okay, we're going to take the hormone stuff out of this and we're just going to do all these heart studies and diabetes studies on men. And so women have been lost on the side, and they go, oh, if it works for men, it must work for you. And so everything's kind of like this one size fits all. So Leah, tell us how your experience. First of all, let people know who you are, like what made you go to PA school, and what are you doing now?
I went to PA school after going on a missions trip in Honduras, and just kind of realized that that is what I want to do, is a medical trip. And that's kind of the long story short. And I started in animal medicine and switched to human medicine, but now I'm here, and that's kind of what guided me to PA school, and just being able to work on a team with doctors like Dr. Lenzkes and Mary and Nicole. So that's kind of what guided me to PA, and then PA school. And then, hormone wise, just how I got into that as well. It's kind of, It's kind of funny when you find providers that have niches like we do, low carb and hormones kind of starts with a personal story a lot of times, I feel like, of why you get into such things. So that's definitely how it started for me. I think a lot of times we start to look at hormones when we don't have them anymore. Like that was the meat of our education, is we look at hormones when women go through menopause or men go through andropause, which is their menopause. So, and I was like, well, that's kind of weird. Like we have these throughout our whole life, but we just start to look at them or question them when we don't have them anymore. So through PA school, as you know, with medical school, it's taxing. There's a lot of stress, and it's a kind of an unhealthy lifestyle, trying to learn how to promote a healthy lifestyle. But so that kind of ended up in a whirlwind of symptoms for me personally, just with my hormones and extreme, just it came out acne, mood swings, really horrendous periods. And so I just kind of went down my own journey, and then it kind of opened up my eyes to like, wow, this is a lot more than we think, or that a lot of people know, even just as people in general. So that's kind of how I got interested, and dealt with a lot of difficulties and imbalances myself. And so I kind of went down this route, and then, yeah, now it's really fascinating to me. So I just keep learning more.
Yeah, and that's what's cool. When you said when I was like when you said that, like I'm looking into hormones, I was like, oh my gosh, like of all the things, because from my perspective as a metabolic health practitioner, I look at it and say, okay, um, if we fix the poor lifestyle, the stress, the sleep, like all these things, the hormones will take care of themselves. But for some people, postmenopausal women, that's not the case. They need extra help. So how
Mhm.
do we determine that? How do we go? Oh, let's just. So for me, I try to minimize the lab. As you know, I try to minimize the labs up front. I don't want to get 20,000 labs. I go, let's look at the low
Yeah,
hanging fruit like insulin and thyroid. A good thyroid panel and you know,
yeah,
um, um, inflammatory markers, things like that we're
right.
looking at. But how do I say, this patient in front of me, I should probably look at hormones right away?
Yeah, well, a lot of times I start with their history. If they've had a long-standing history of difficult cycles, or if they've had a known history of PCOS or endometriosis, fibroids, things like that, those all can definitely tailor into a difficult menopause with more symptoms than if you had a healthy, balanced cycle your whole life. So then kind of sifting through symptoms, like, are you exhausted right when you wake up? Do you have zero libido? You can't even remember why you walked in the room? Or low concentration, you don't even feel the need to get up out of your couch. So those are some things that I'm like, this might be hormonal more than just you're lazy. Like we don't want to just assume that people don't want to exercise or can't build muscle because they're lazy. I think that's not a good way to practice medicine. So hormones play such a role in that thing. And then it's kind of more so sifting out, is this estrogen? Is this progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, and going down through those specific ones too.
Yeah, I've learned a lot from you on that standpoint. It's like, oh, well, what is if you have low estrogen? What is it? And so it's funny enough, I've had women that I've taken menopausal women that I take care of, and their hot flashes went away 5 years ago, but they weigh 300 pounds. They lose
Yeah.
50 pounds. They're like, doctor, I'm getting my hot flashes back. Why is that happening? Because you lose that estrogen effect from the fat. And men, when they lose fat tissue, they get their testosterone will triple, a lot of times because they're putting on muscle mass and they're decreasing visceral fat, and they go, oh my gosh, my testosterone without taking testosterone. So the debate is like, do we start you and like help you like a low dose? And I think so I'd love to ask you like,
Mhm.
okay, like if someone comes in and what are there certain complaints that go along with, I know we've talked about progesterone and like food cravings and other things that go out, like what are some things that are associated with each hormone being deficient?
Yeah, so that's a good question because sometimes people don't even know, where their symptoms come from. But so estrogen, when that dips, we see a lot of like mood irritability. That's where the hot flashes come in, the temperature regulations, because estrogen is very much so a temperature regulator in our body. So when that goes to zero, then we have no temperature regulation. So irritability is super common. That's, when you get that, just, I don't know why I'm always angry all the time. I don't know why I'm irritated. Insomnia is huge when the estrogen dips. It has a role in libido as well. People just will be like, I don't even want to have anything to do with my spouse. And then progesterone is more so
And then estrogen, the other thing we see a lot is recurrent urinary infections,
oh
right?
yeah, yeah.
And
And
then they'll go on a little estrogen. Oh, it's cured.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. And same with testosterone with that, with dry skin. People have dry eyes, dry vagina, and then that all has a role in, pain with intercourse and things like that, which can definitely mess up relationships and marriages and things like that. But then testosterone too, with like if you have been doing the same workout all the time and you've had good results with it, and then all of a sudden you don't, and you have no muscle growth or low concentration. A lot of times it's kind of the drive is taken out. That's a lot of times what I'm hearing of people is like, I am like a type A, I have advanced degrees, I have all this knowledge, but I literally don't have the motivation to do anything. So that's a lot of times what we see with testosterone. And then progesterone is a big mood component as well. So that has a lot to do with the calmness and the anti-anxiety and sleep a ton for sure.
And that's the
Those are
thing is when you start circling around, you start looking at this. Mindy Pels, we've had her on a couple of times
yeah.
talking about hormones and cortisol and how cortisol being high, stress, all this stuff blocks the production of estrogen, progesterone, because your body goes, look, you're stressed all the time. This is not the time to get pregnant. If you're broke, don't get
Mhm,
pregnant,
mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
you conserve energy. So a lot of postmenopausal women will store more visceral fat and they just feel, and you're
Mhm.
right. I love that you're saying that. It's because a lot of people come in and you go, so tell me about your life. Oh, I'm bored, I'm tired, I'm miserable, all this stuff. Go, what did you do? What tell me about your life? Oh, I used to run marathons, I used to work out every day, I used to like, go on
Mhm.
adventures and climb mountains, and all of a sudden, like I have no energy to do anything. It's not,
Yeah.
and so many times in the primary care setting, they go, oh, you're not wanting to do stuff, oh, you're depressed, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so a lot of
Mhm.
times I ferreted out talking to people. It's like, okay, if you do you have the desire to go hiking? You want to, he goes, yeah, I want to go so bad, but I
Mhm.
just can't get it. And it's different than someone goes, no, I don't care about any of that stuff anymore. Like
Yeah.
depression, you don't care about stuff, but people, I want to do those things. I just don't have the energy to go play with my grandkids. I don't have the energy to go hiking with my husband, those kind
Uh-huh.
of things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's a misconception with like, there's nothing you can do after those hormones dip. A lot of times people feel kind of they're at the end of the road. That's just what they have to put up with or tolerate. But there's so many things that can be done to get that old self. People are like, I miss, blank. I miss Leah, where she was at, 5 years ago. I can't, I find her. So yeah, it's cool to just like put that hope back into people, is that this is chemical. It's not because you're not doing the right things for your health standpoint. So that's a cool aspect that, we can help people with.
And so it's synergistic in that, okay, let me take out the toxins. If you're drinking every day, that's going to affect the hormones. If you're smoking every day, if you're not exercising at all, if you're sleeping three
Yeah.
hours a night, all those things play a role. And it's funny because on low carb MD, when I talked about these things, people go, just talk low carb. Well, it all plays a role. But what we do see
Oh,
is when people go low carb or keto, that their brain function. Now we have Georgia E. We have so many people showing improvement in mental health. This study just came out with
mhm.
ALS improving on the low carb ketogenic diet, Parkinson's disease, dementia, all these things we worry about
Yeah,
as we get
yeah,
older. And you go, okay, now because I think the problem we run into, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, is that we run into a situation where they'll go, okay, testosterone's good. Let's give you massive doses of testosterone or massive doses. And you go, well, you probably don't. Let's just get to the physiologic range, right? So some people are just overdosing
yeah,
patients, just like anything. Insulin in too small amount kills you, too high amount kills you. So you go, okay, let's
yeah,
get in that sweet spot, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
hormones is even
totally.
more challenged because of cycles and all that.
Yeah, yeah. And that's where lab work comes into play a lot with this is and the idea of optimizing, but not, like you said, overdoing it. So, the ranges are so big because there's so many different cycles out there that women experience with highs and lows of hormones. So finding where somebody feels the best at is it can be challenging because it's a lot of times based on symptoms too, alongside the lab panels. So, even though one person might be at the higher end of normal for progesterone, another person might be at the lower end of normal of progesterone and feel great. And that's okay, and I think that's an important thing is like we don't have to always strive for the, very, very highest number on the lab panel because it is a lot of symptom based too. We want you to feel the best. That's the goal.
Yeah, and that's such an important point is we can't just do these huge lab panels and just say, okay, you're low on this, let's replace it. Because as a matter of fact, delay I just saw yesterday that you had recently saw, and she,
Mhm.
her hormones are off, and then we said, let's try getting your thyroid normalized. And I saw her yesterday, and she's like, I walked in the room, like, what happened? Like you are.
Yeah,
She goes, oh, I'm riding the bike more. I'm exercising. I went hiking with my husband. I'm doing. She goes, I got my thyroid. She goes, it is like a light switch went off. I feel so
yeah,
good. She goes, "Do I have
yeah,
to do the hormones?" And I go, "Let's just wait and see how if you're doing great, why add more stuff to the confusion here, right?" And
yeah,
so
yeah.
sometimes you don't necessarily like when you get your hormones right and your stress level, because again, if she's exercising now and sleeping in and then doing things she needs to do and she's sleeping better, then
Hmm. Hmm.
her estrogen progesterone may go up just from lowering that cortisol effect.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another great point is I think people understand menopause as you don't have any more hormones, to produce at all. And while that's true with the ovaries, they are not producing the typical hormones. But the adrenal glands still produce some hormones, and those we can still optimize and make sure they're healthy with the stress factor. And so that's another aspect of balancing hormones is, going on hormone therapy, that's a large decision and that's not a decision everybody wants to make or is in a position to make, and that's totally fine. And so just having these um, you know, other ideas and other ways that women can help boost their hormones is so important because I think, like you said in the beginning, one size does not fit all. And, that's kind of something that I feel like you and I are trying to pave the way for like getting that point across in so many different aspects, just and making individualized plans that will work for patients and
Yeah, and I
people.
was never so convinced. I mean, what happened, when the emergency use dropped, some of the doctors who were doing hormone therapy in California could no longer do it because they weren't allowed to do telemedicine here anymore, right? So I said, no
Mhm.
problem, I'll take over those patients. I really sat down and started talking to the patients, and it was unbelievable, like what they were telling me. They go, I was laying in bed, I couldn't do anything. Now I'm playing pickleball 4 days a week because
Yeah.
the hormones being so low, they were just miserable, and that led them to eating terrible food. All these
Mhm.
things that were happening, and so I was, to my dismay, a lot of them said, I go, was it when you got better? Was it the ketogenic diet or low carb diet, or was it the hormones? They're like, hormones. I'm like, what, really? Like, really? That's like, I was expecting them to say that kind of helped a little bit, but it was mostly lifestyle. But I think it's that big picture of saying, okay, if
Yeah.
you're really low, you're not going to be motivated to go exercise and go do stuff.
Yeah.
And the point you brought up that's really critical, that people kind of gloss over. They think it's funny, but it's not. That when your sex drive drops or if you have pain during intercourse, that is a huge message to your partner, like that you're not attracted to them anymore. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
affairs happen, all this crazy
Yeah.
stuff happens just because like no one's really understanding why we're in this situation in a relationship.
Hmm. Yeah, totally. And I think that is something that is not talked about a lot because, sure, it's uncomfortable at times and not a popular question to even ask, in an appointment. So sometimes it gets overlooked. And I think there was a poll taken and it showed like I don't like it was like 80% of women don't tell their OBGYNs that, they have these symptoms sometimes because they're uncomfortable about them. And so, just that alone is like they're doctor that kind of specializes in that sort of thing that they're uncomfortable talking about. So asking the questions and kind of vetting those out are really important, because that can definitely be a life changer to people and relationships.
Yeah, no one wants to talk about it, and that's an important thing because I'll always ask my patients when they come in, and especially if they're plateaued, they're frustrated, they go, "Look, I'm counting my macros, I'm working out 5 days a week, I'm doing all the right stuff, and I'm not losing weight." My next question is like, "How are things at home?" And boom,
Yeah.
the tears come, and people cry and go, "Oh my gosh, I haven't, my husband and I fight every day, and I hate my job," and you start realizing, "Oh my goodness, there's a lot to this," or you're overwhelmed with 3 kids and you're trying to pay your bills, and there's a book called Rushing Woman Syndrome we've talked about, and
Uh,
um, where you're constantly under stress. And what I love is and everyone go, I don't care, go listen to other podcasts. Huberman Lab had on Robert Lustig, and they were saying that stress, people can't lose weight under stress. Here's the
yeah.
physiology. Here's what it is to the amygdala of the brain. Here, and when you
Right,
start
right.
seeing these things, you go, wow. And then Ben Bickman, you go, hey, what about stress? Jason Fung, what about stress? And you keep
Yeah.
throwing stress
Yeah.
into the picture, and it's absolutely
Yeah.
it's amazing the impact that people just don't realize, that the impact
The
on
effect.
hormones.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, definitely. If you just Google search, like anybody can just Google search, like what makes hormones dip. I guarantee you on every article, it'll be stress in that article, because it's so important, and we're just chronically stressed. We're like chronically looking for how to climb the ladder next, or what do we need to do next, and it's interesting is because when people hit menopause and you look back, and what did they just do for 40 years? Raised kids, go to college, have a career, all these like chronically stressful things. And so, it's no wonder that people kind of hit the late 40s and hit a wall. And even younger too. I mean, it doesn't discount younger women, men and women, that can't feel some of these symptoms because of really chronically low hormones. So I think that's like an important point to remember, and something that I want more women to know about is, hormone health is not just for a certain age. It's really like a whole lifestyle health outlook, because when your hormones are out of whack for so many years, whether that's because of stress or certain conditions, or something like that, then that definitely can carry on through your life, and then have more severe menopause symptoms. There's definitely a correlation with that, so focusing on it as young as possible is always the best case scenario. So, and I definitely learned that the hard way with some health conditions that I had to deal with and work through. So I think that's an important
I think
thing to
that's
remember.
huge, and that's kind of what we're saying is like, okay, you don't want a mechanic goes, let's wait till you blow up your engine and we'll change it. You go, okay, things are starting to make funny noises. Should we look at this? Right? I'm
Exactly.
starting to get more edgy with people. I've gained 15 pounds. I'm not, I don't feel like doing stuff. I don't enjoy going out with my husband. Whatever it is. Catching
Mm-hmm.
it early, because you don't want to wait till you're in a total disaster downfall situation and go, oh, let's try to
Yeah.
throw everything at it again and fix it.
Yeah, 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 completely. And also looking at all the other things that come into play with hormones, because hormones can't work right if your gut isn't working, if your thyroid isn't working, if the cortisol is up. So looking at all of those in a more whole body approach is very, very helpful. And a lot of times that's where young women and men can start, and just balancing hormones. It doesn't have to look like taking a pill. It can look just as, let's fix the diet, let's get more the microbiome right, the cortisol balance, those type of things, because those are all building blocks for hormones. I mean, they need a good thyroid. Hormones need adequate amount of cholesterol to be made. So if we don't even have those figured out, we can't even start to talk about hormone health a lot of times.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up because gut health is over the last few years, it's been unbelievable. I see people change their diet. I see people go carnivore and their depression goes away. It's like, why is this
Oh,
happening? Is it
yeah.
because you're taking away a toxin? I don't know why it's happening, but where it's happening, right? So,
Mm.
there's a lot to that too. And there's studies showing that when you're in menopause, it screws up the gut microbiome. And when the gut microbiome gets screwed up, it screws up it's a two-way signaling, right? So so many
Mhm.
people don't take into account, oh, I've been eating all this processed food. I'm, like, drinking a lot. Alcohol kills off the gut microbiome just as much as or even more. Like, we cut ourselves, we put alcohol on it,
Yeah.
right? So a lot of people get stressed, depressed, they start drinking more, and then they go down that cycle, right? And we're trying to
Mhm.
fix that also, right? Of
Mhm.
finding something in life where you can have pleasure, like you said. You're waiting for that next thing, that next car. I just talked to a multimillionaire yesterday, and he's like, you know, what do I do now? Like, I've owned all the Corvettes I own. I got planes. I like, what do I do now? Like, this is like, it's a weird thing because your whole life you're striving for something. You get there and you're like, okay, the view's not as good as
What's
I thought it
next?
would be.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's so good because I think it's so relevant to so many people, and um it's something that's attainable, like we're not talking about, some crazy thing you have to follow and super expensive things and all of this stuff. We're talking about very attainable things, go outside, get sunlight, vitamin D, like that reduces breast cancer and helps hormones and helps thyroid and all of this stuff that's right in our backyard, and so I think that's a good point to remember, and just to be a component to medical or not, you can always talk to your friends about these things, and just like spreading a more awareness about a healthy, balanced life, because that's how we were designed, and how our hormones work best. And so I think we've just kind of been burdened with a toxic world. And I think it's just figuring out ways to reduce that as much as possible. It's hard to do it 100% just because of the way life is, which is totally, we can't get around some of these things. But if we can optimize the areas that we know will benefit us, then it's kind of hard not to just want to dive into those things.
Yeah, and one of the other big things that comes up with hormones too is sleep. So I know you've had some success using melatonin and titrating it. So maybe you could tell people what you're doing with. I was actually intrigued by what you were telling me yesterday with the patient who was having migraines and poor
Yeah.
sleep. And so tell people about that.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, melatonin is another hormone, and it's a naturally produced hormone. And it has to do with the sleep-wake cycles. But it can be messed up a lot just because people don't get great sleep, and sleep health and hygiene is a huge thing. When do you go to bed? How long are you on your phone before bed? When you wake up in the morning, are you just on your phone in a dark room and your body just thinks it's morning but doesn't really know? So these are all things that mess up sleep, and that I've seen can make a lot of difference in people. So yeah, I had a patient that had chronic migraines pretty much her whole life, and has tried every medication under the sun and tried different things, and so I had been listening and reading and hearing about my melatonin for migraine prevention, and another something to try. And so I was like, listen, like, let's just try it. Like, melatonin is pretty safe. Like, the worst that's going to happen is you have a bad dream. And then, we talk about it, like maybe lower the dose. So she tried it, and she has not had a migraine since I've started her on the medication 2 months ago or so. So, and she's made lifestyle changes too. I don't want to discount all of those things. So that's important to note because I think they all work together. But it's cool because, these are things that are found naturally in our body that just get messed up. And so if we can get that balance or boost that a little bit, how cool to help migraines without using really harsh drugs with
People
side
are
effects.
injecting themselves with stuff that hurts like crazy, and there's so many
Yeah,
things like
yeah,
that. There you go, man. If we can intervene in a better way, and then
yeah, yeah, yeah.
things like stress reduction, can you just breathe for a couple minutes and slow down go into the parasympathetic
Yeah.
rather than that overdrive sympathetic all the time. And
Hmm.
'cause I think that's
Yeah.
just I talk to people all the time, and I'm amazed by how many people just can't shut their brain down, right?
Hmm.
Because you're
Hmm.
thinking, oh, I got to pay this bill next week. I got to be here. I got to go. And you have so much responsibility. You can't just say, or you feel guilty if you sit there. Like, you and I can identify more going through training, medical training. It's you feel guilty when you're not doing something, like, oh, I'm gonna have to stay for
Totally.
20 hours if I don't do it right now, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that carries along. And I've had to I don't know if you had this experience, but after school and after boards and finding a job, like I would still feel guilty on a Saturday if I wanted to just do nothing essentially and like feel guilty about doing that. And so it's like retraining your brain to get back to that. Like it's okay to rest. Rest is so important. And, you know, it's a huge component of hormone health because without rest and relaxation, your cortisol is just going to spike all the time. And then that will, when the cortisol spikes chronically, then it decreases your DHEA, which is kind of the, you know, that makes a lot of the hormones that you need. So when that decreases, then you're, you know, at a position where your hormones are not working optimally. So yeah, that's a super important, you know,
Yeah, then my other favorite hormone is oxytocin.
yeah,
That's the love hormone, and you have a new
yeah,
baby and you're breastfeeding, oxytocin's released. So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that has a
yeah.
huge role in all this too, right?
Yeah, no, totally. And I think, you know, how you explain it is perfect because that's exactly how the body works with progesterone. Because if you are stressed out all the time and not making the oxytocin and the progesterone, then your body is not in a position to give you a good mood or have a baby or things like that. And so, you know, when people come to me and they're like, I can't sleep, I can't rest, I'm stressed out all the time, I have so much like just weight on my shoulders and tension and anxiety, like maybe boosting the progesterone will really, really help that person. Um, you know, and that's a cool hormone that we can give just solely, you know, we don't have to give it with estrogen or testosterone. Just boosting the progesterone a little bit can be a life-changing hormone. And we give it at night because it literally helps with sleep. So it's a cool one to add on to somebody if they really, really struggle with those things.
What about the concerns of women that the Women's Health Initiative and things like that, where they came out and they said no hormones for anyone, get them off it right now, and then they did a reanalysis and go, yeah, maybe it's not as bad as it. Maybe in the first couple months it's worse. And so, how do you
Mhm.
reassure people, and what's the delivery that we're using more so now than oral pills?
Yeah, yeah. And that's something that I think is really important to bring up with people because I want them to be informed if they want to do it or if they don't want to do it, which is fine. So the WIH study came out with, you know, they looked at women that were on the synthetic estrogens, the synthetic progestins, and they found, you know, the first couple years they said that there was an increase in breast cancer, stroke, et cetera. And, you know, there was a lot of flaws, like, as you know, in that study where they looked at an older population of women. They didn't take into account smoking, which is a huge risk factor for those things. So a lot of these different risk factors that weren't, you know, vetted out. And so I think it raised a lot of false concern. And so, and especially with the synthetics and the differences between synthetic and bioidentical, because that's the meat of the difference is because the synthetics, I don't use them. I don't recommend them. We use the bioidenticals, as you know, in the practice, and those are exactly what they say. They're bioidentical molecule to the hormone that's produced in your body. So we're not putting in the synthetic estrogens that are made from horse pee that have 8 different estrogens. Your body knows how to use 2 of them, maybe, and the rest just kind of go awry in your body. And same with the progestin. So it's important to know when you're talking about hormones, are we talking about bioidentical, which is the estradiol, the estrone, estriol, versus it's just an umbrella term of estrogens. And then the progesterone, are we talking about progestin, which is the synthetic, or progesterone, which is the bioidentical? And yeah, like you said, the bioidentical has a much better safety profile. It reduces a lot of the concerns that the study showed the synthetics increase. So, you know, there's a much better safety profile. They're more effective. There are less side effects, things like that. So, and you know, it's a good conversation that a lot of times gets had when I talk about patients with these things, because a lot of times they come in with questions or concerns, or I talked to my friend and they told me, it was increased breast cancer and, all these concerns. So, which is good. And those are the patients that I like to have conversations with, because it tells me that they want to understand it and they've done some research, and that's always good, being informed.
Well, we can't have educated patients, that's
Yeah,
the
I
only
know.
thing. So like they say, don't do your own research. Yeah, do your own research. Come in and we can address those things, right?
Yeah.
That's what I've always been amazed by when they go, it's dangerous to do your own research. I'm a doctor. Listen to me. It's like I know more about this area than you because I'm struggling with it and you've never had hormones before, right? So I think
Yeah.
there's a lot. And I
Yeah.
think you raised the point when you look at some of these studies. I think the one that has probably damaged more people than most studies is the Accord trial, when they said, oh, if you control diabetes 2, the lower the A1C they kept it, the
Mhm.
worse the patient did with outcomes. All cause mortality went up, heart attacks went up,
Mhm.
everything went up. So they go, keep the A1C higher at 7, which is a total disaster. But the
Mm.
reason they said that is they were using insulin to bring the sugars down. They weren't using
Uh,
lifestyle. So you're
yeah.
telling me that having a low A1C and insulin, which is a huge marker for cardiovascular disease. And the other thing that people don't really take into account when we're talking about hormones is the effect of when your hormones are off and you're depressed and anxious, laying in a bed all day, that's
Mhm.
going to raise your cardiac risk more than just about anything, especially if you're eating
Totally.
bonbons on top of it to make yourself feel better, and coffee in the morning and wine at night to slow down, right?
Yeah, yeah. And just the lack of activity with bone health, because estrogen and estradiol, more so that I'm talking about because we're talking about bioidenticals, but that has a huge component of bone health, as does testosterone. And so when those dip and people feel like horrible, they don't want to do anything, they don't want to work out, they don't want to even go for a walk, then yeah, bone health just the same, just really, really declines. So, getting people to that mood where they feel able and want to do those things helps them all around as a person, because it is that whole picture approach to hormone health for sure.
Yeah, and I think hormones and metabolic stuff, I think it's amazing. Like this lady, when I was seeing her yesterday, I was just so happy looking at her. Like as soon as I walked in, I'm looking at her, I go, she's bubbly and like
It's
she has
different.
her life back again. When you see that,
Yeah,
you go,
yeah,
man, I mean,
yeah.
you can't throw drugs at people. I mean, there's certain things where you go when they're like, oh my gosh, my husband and I went and did this thing. We had so much fun. It's like you were like
Mhm.
mopey and grumpy last time I saw you, So it's amazing to see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And just the thyroid too. And I think that patient was experiencing the effects of just boosting some thyroid. And that is definitely in the whole picture when I sit down with somebody to talk about hormones. We're not just talking about the estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, but looking at thyroid, because that is missed a lot. And I think it's super important because, even chemically, it's important to make hormones, because you need thyroid to make a certain hormone that, goes down that whole chain. So, if that is out of whack, then, getting to that root cause is so important, because I think that is some of the main struggles that are not looked at a lot of, just boosting
I
thyroid
think
in and of
I,
itself.
I think we've done people, women in particular, a disservice with thyroid. As a matter of fact, we were at a conference together, and a lady came up to me and she knew me from low carb stuff and said, "So
Uh-huh.
what do you think about thyroid stuff? What do you think about?" And I go, "Yeah." When we started just talking about it, she started crying. I go, "Why are you crying?" She goes, "Can I be your patient?" She goes, "My doctors will not give me the free T3, right? The
Yeah, yeah,
Cytomel, and I've gained weight. I'm miserable. I'm depressed. My body hurts. My eyebrows are thinning. She had every sign of
yep.
constipation, miserable. And her doctor's like, no, TSH is all that matters. Like,
Hmm.
now if you're
Hmm.
not converting it over to the active thyroid hormone, it's not all that matters. Now we have her replaced and she's happy and great. And
Yeah.
it's like a country song backwards again, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's a good point too, is the conversion alone. Is there's so many aspects that go into that, converting the T3 or T4 to T3, and how stress definitely, I mean, that's like the number one reason why your body wouldn't convert into that, is just looking at the stress. And so going back to that aspect, just focusing on where, even if you don't feel stressed, like I am a person that I internalize things. So sometimes I'll like sit down for the end of the day and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so tense, And so I think it's those people too that maybe are like, I'm not stressed, I can handle my job good, my family's great, all of that. But then we get their cortisol back and it's, 20 some, and they
Yeah.
don't even realize
And the
it.
insulin's through the roof. And that's what
Yeah.
I think one of the big things is, over the years, now that I have all these gray hairs, I've been noticing like, okay, our body wants to help us out. So why do we get fat? Because our body says, look, I can't leave that sugar in the bloodstream. If I do, you're going to get diabetes. So I'm helping you
Mhm.
out here. So getting fat is actually it helps your health to that degree, right? Because your choice
Mhm.
is, okay, you can have diabetes, or better yet, you can stop eating all that terrible food. And then I don't have to do all these heroic measures, right? LDL
Yeah.
cholesterol. Our brain is making LDL cholesterol all the time. Is our brain trying to kill us? Does it have a vendetta? No. It's what we're
Right.
doing. If that LDL sitting in a bad environment of toxic and stress and hating life and all those kind of things, it causes a different
Mhm.
situation. But there's so much of that you go, okay, so why would my body want me to get rid of muscle, and why would my body want me to get fat? Because you're telling your body every day, I'm stressed, I'm tense, things are going to go bad, so there's going to be a famine. Oh, you want to survive a famine? Let's get rid of your
Mhm.
muscle. We'll store a bunch of extra fat, so you'll have energy to burn down the road. So like we store fat for an emergency, but when we're
Yeah.
constantly in emergency, right, we're always storing fat for that bigger emergency that's coming. So what
Right.
do? You slow down your thyroid, say, okay, stop putting on muscle, slow down the metabolic rate. Let's get rid of muscle. Let's do everything we can
Mhm.
to make you survive longer, right?
Mhm.
But you're
Mhm.
eating healthy. And so that's why fasting has become an issue, where some women fasting right before their period, it causes issues, right? Everyone knows before your period, my wife would say, oh my gosh, I'm craving chocolate. I go, is your period starting? Yeah. Oh, okay. Right. So you would
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
a lot of people have that feeling, but it's a natural instinct that your body's like, let's fatten you up in case you get pregnant. We have to support that
Exactly.
baby. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so interesting. I think for me personally, I went so many years not even looking at that or recognizing it. And then once that clicked in my brain and I learned about it, and then I started paying attention to what I ate and what my body craved and stuff. And I totally saw a correlation with those type of fluctuations. Like my body needed more calories the week before my period. My body needed less the week after. I could lift heavier weights after. I saw this video the other day, thing on Instagram, and it was just it was kind of just a picture of how a women's body changes throughout the month versus guy's body. And so it was like this guy and girl doing squats, and the girl changed her weight, she changed her reps, she changed her speed, like all throughout the video, and the guy just stayed the same the
Yeah. Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's so true though, is like we don't live our life for our hormones. And I think that is another super important point. If you're premenopausal, perimenopausal, postmenopausal, all those different, it still correlates. And it's really important for hormone balance, because our bodies definitely fluctuate. And that is a natural correspondence to the hormones. So, and it's cool to learn about that and to optimize that and to use them for our benefit versus I feel like crap today, like all I want is chocolate. But that's your body signaling, no, like rest. This is your days to rest, relax, make the cortisol go down. Like that is your body signaling that. And then when you do have that elevated, your progesterone goes up, your testosterone goes up, use that to learn something new, lift heavier at the gym, have conversations that you normally wouldn't. And so it's cool to use the hormones to our power as women specifically.
Yeah, and it's amazing. It is amazing because so many people, like we know, a majority of our patients, but most of us who struggle with weight, we're stress eaters. Well,
Yeah.
I'm just a stress eater. It's like, okay, if you're a stress eater, the more stress you are, the more you eat then, right? Why don't we
Mhm.
work on the stress component? Oh no, I don't have time to work on that. Well, it's gonna be a hard situation. What
Yeah.
else do we
Yeah.
do to
Yeah.
relieve stress? And that's the other thing is like, what else do we do? Like we know exercise relieves stress and getting good sleep relieves stress. A lot of us have had arguments with our spouse
Yeah.
before bed and we wake up in the morning and go, that was a dumb argument, huh? Like we were hungry and tired and grumpy, right?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Being hangry is a real thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's chemical, it's hormonal in the body. And so, like you said, I think that's so cool. And so many people are talking about it more. It's like the body has so much ability to heal itself. We just have to give it the right tools to be able to do that. So
And
like
get out of the way, get out of the
fasting, yeah,
way and just go,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
If you're sunburned
Totally.
all the time, get out of the sun and your skin will heal you, right?
Yeah. And that's, a lot of times it's kind of a personal journey, like it was for me. I really had to heal my gut, and then so many things got better. I mean, just it was like crazy when I walked through that journey of healing my gut, and I didn't even think about like, oh, I knew it was a hormone problem, but I didn't even think to like, oh, maybe I should heal my gut first. Like that didn't connect until I had to like sit down and like, okay, I'm at a loss, I'm miserable, what else can I do? And I don't want people to get to that point, and I think you are the same way. And so it's neat to like, you know, go through these things and then realize we can help so many people with prevention wise.
Yeah, and that's another big point that people don't realize. The skin is a reflection of all this stuff, right? When
Hmm.
you're stressed and
Hmm.
tense and your hormones are off, and acne is a problem, and eczema and rashes, and a lot of
Yeah.
this goes back
Yeah.
to gut health and being under. I mean, looking at the data, it's amazing. More people don't talk about it. Is that for
Hmm.
instance, autoimmune disease, 90% come after a stressful event, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you say
Yeah.
stress
Yeah.
doesn't have an effect, and and it's amazing that um what an impact it has on us.
Yeah. 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 I mean, anybody, like I know countless of people that have, I talk to them after the holidays. The holidays are, can be pretty stressful for a lot of people, and they literally get sick. The minute they get home from a stressful holiday event, they get sick. Or, things like that. So, and it's ironic. And I think,
And
we've
you're
missed
eating
that
more and you're
sometimes.
drinking bad stuff and your gut is screwed up, and people don't
Yeah,
realize that our biggest immune organ is the gut. And if we get that all
totally.
screwed up,
Mhm.
it's a disaster for the
Yeah, yeah. Well, and mood too. I mean, that makes such a huge thing. And then also thyroid. There's like the gut brain axis is popular and talked about, but there's a gut thyroid axis that's also important. And so, it goes back to just nourishing, and that's another huge point of like hormone health. We can give you all the exogenous hormones and try and do that, but if the nutrition isn't there and the nutrients to support that and to support the gut and the microbiome, then it is more of a band-aid and not fixing the root problem. So that's like so important for people to know of just these are so helpful and they're life changing, but also we have to kind of supplement it with nutrition, stress, sleep, exercise, all of that. And then you'll get the most benefits from them from bioidentical.
Yeah, and it's important to know. And I really was not a hormone. I was not an advocate for sure, because all these guys would come in, we check their test, they want their testosterone is low, put them on testosterone, and a year later they don't notice any difference. Everything's the same. Like, okay, is it doing
Mhm.
something? But the point is, the guys who worked out and exercised, and so one of my guys just recently wanted, hey, can you put me on high dose testosterone? I'm like, no, I can't, because you're sitting
Mhm.
around, you're stressed all the time, you don't exercise, like it's dangerous
Yeah.
for you. And he goes, and I go, look, you can't just shoot testosterone and think you're going to get lean muscle mass and get strong and everything's going to be great in your life and your erectile dysfunction goes away if you're
Right.
not going to put the work in. You haven't exercised since I've known you, right? So why don't you start that first and we'll talk about it. But the funny
Mhm.
thing, and people who exercise, it does help their exercise endurance. But if you don't exercise, it's not going to help you. And he
Totally.
says, do you think that's why steroids didn't help me when I took them? I go, so you took steroids, you didn't exercise? He goes, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, it's useless. What are you
Yeah.
doing? It helps you
Yeah.
recover faster. These guys are using it for these big. I mean, obviously, I'm not condoning that. I'm just saying it's hilarious that he
Right.
thought it. But that's the world we're in right now. People go, just let me
Yeah.
just eat my terrible diet and just shoot me with more stuff so that I can be healthy. It's like, well, how
Yeah.
much vitamin D should I take? Well, you should stop drinking every day and smoking and staying up all night and being at
Yeah.
the rave every night.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And that's like it's funny because I feel like we're not nutritionists, but half the time, half of our conversations are about nutrition and that aspect, which is so important. And I think that that's just a really good point to always remember is to bring it back to the basics. It doesn't have to be this like crazy health plan with 100 supplements and all these things, but just bringing it back to like where we were designed to work well, and then everything else will fall into place. Sure, there's natural fluctuations. Yes, menopause is going to happen. Like there's no way around that. But, working towards how can we optimize things before and then during as well. And then that definitely helps symptoms and lifestyle and just feeling so much better.
So for women in particular listening, and they go, look, I'm 52 years old, just stopped having my period. I've gained 14 pounds. I can't lose it. I'm tired all the time. What are some good labs that we go, yeah, let's just check these and kind of like the low-hanging fruit that we can look at and
Yeah.
go, okay, this gives a good snapshot of where we're at without going too esoteric.
Yeah. So when women come to me, the typical panel that I like to run to kind of get a good baseline is some of the normal things, the blood counts, electrolytes, insulin, A1C, and then getting down to the nitty-gritty of hormones, thyroid, and more than just the TSH, so the free T3, free T4, but maybe looking at antibodies, maybe looking at reverse T3, and then the hormones, which is DHEA. We want to check the FSH and the LH to confirm they're in menopause or postmenopausal or not, because that can determine which hormones we put you on. And then progesterone, estradiol, and then testosterone, but also making sure that we do the free testosterone and the total. And then cortisol is important too. And then also I took vitamin D a lot because I am so surprised how many people come back with low vitamin D. And
It's
it's
a marker for metabolic health for sure. If you look at a lot of the data with people dying of COVID, they had low vitamin D levels. There was a lot of that kind of stuff. Oh, I think our internet froze for a second.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'll pause it. Hey, Jack, you have to edit
Are you
that out.
there?
Yeah, we just had a little internet drop. We're good.
Oh, okay.
So
Sorry.
I was just saying, that the low vitamin D is a huge marker for poor metabolic health, and you can't
Yeah.
have really terrible metabolic health and just take vitamin D and think you're going to be healthy, right? So it's a big picture, and this is what when we see high triglycerides, we can't just lower those triglycerides without fixing why the triglycerides are high.
Why it's yeah,
It doesn't make a mortality difference to give you niacin to lower triglycerides if you're metabolically sick and you're diabetic and you're not taking care of
yeah.
yourself. Right?
Sorry, I don't know why it keeps going out.
I think we're good now.
Okay,
I
okay,
got you.
okay.
Jack will
But
clean
yeah,
this up. We'll make Jack do this part. We'll make him work a little
okay.
bit.
Yeah. But yeah, those are kind of the standard labs that I like to run. And then we talk about what other risk factors you might have, looking at lipids or, CRP, sed rate for inflammation, things like that, that we can follow and use for, determining a plan.
Have you heard anything? Because I'm gonna ask you questions I really don't know the answer to. So I see
Mhm.
people, women in particular, come in and their thyroid stuff, their free T3 is maybe a little bit low, free T4 is a little low, maybe, and not too bad.
Mhm.
TSH looks good, and their anti-thyroid antibodies are through the roof. And I'm like, what do I do with that? Do I just follow
Yeah.
and wait for you to get hypothyroid? I mean, is there something we can do to help with those anti-thyroid? That's an autoimmune issue, right?
Right. Yeah, and I mean, there's no one medication that's gonna, fix all of that, but attacking that as an autoimmune full body type is really beneficial. So I was looking at a lot of different supportive supplements that can help too with the autoimmune and just thyroid health in general. Things like selenium and iodine and zinc are super important for people that have high antibodies in their thyroid. So there's some good research showing that, those particular supplements can help decrease those antibodies over time. But also it can be a response to other things like low vitamin D or stress or things like that. So a lot of times getting those things right and lifestyle and diet, we see I've seen in some patients that I've seen that the antibodies that decrease. So yeah, the one patient that I'm thinking of, she really fixed her diet for I saw her like a month I think we did labs like 6 weeks, post when we found her antibodies, and they decreased significantly. I mean, she still had them, but just working on diet and lifestyle and sleep and stress, they decreased just in and of themselves.
Yeah, and
Um,
presumptively you're helping your gut lining because decreasing your stress and getting your sleep,
yeah,
all those things help
yeah,
that, and you're not having all this autoimmune attack. And
yeah,
there's
yeah,
a lot of data on this stuff, and that's why it's so amazing. The mainstream doctors, including myself for 18 years of my or 16 years of my practice, I was like,
yeah.
just look at TSH, that's all you need.
Right, right,
Well,
right, right.
not when they're having tons of symptoms and they have other things going on.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
about, I'll ask you another one that I don't know a heck of a lot, adrenal fatigue. We hear that thrown around a lot. So I'm like, okay, for, for,
Uh-huh.
for me, for instance, my argument has been, okay, I'm checking your cortisol, it's high. How do I fix that problem? Watch your
Yeah.
stress, get your sleep, all this stuff we're talking about already.
Hmm,
So
hmm.
does knowing that cortisol really help me that much when I go, okay, are there other ways to lower cortisol other than
Yeah.
lifestyle?
Yeah. So that's a great point because a lot of times adrenal fatigue can correlate with a lot of the same symptoms that women see in menopause. So, a cool hormone that kind of has an inverse relationship with cortisol in the adrenals is DHEA. So when your cortisol shoots up, and it stays up chronically, your DHEA will lower, hence lowering all the hormones that DHEA metabolizes into. So when
So it's
we
basically
increase,
shifting that DHEA is shifting, it's being made into cortisol rather than going over to the progesterone estrogen. Then you run out and you don't have enough to make those other hormones.
yeah, yeah, it's an inverse relationship. So DHEA can't stay up if cortisol is chronically elevated. So when we give a little bit of DHEA, the cortisol comes down. It actually, has that specific effect on cortisol of lowering that level without without the side effects and things like that. And then you also get a boost in the hormones that DHEA uh, works towards. So that's a cool tool to have is people that have chronic adrenal dysfunction and from stress is to add a little bit of DHEA to lower the cortisol.
Just imagine if they had to work with me all the time, how high their stress, cortisol, and all that would be.
Yeah, we'd both be taking DHEA.
My goodness, right? So, are there any other tips you have for this old doc or any other old docs who are listening, going, "Hey, here's something that like people aren't looking at, or something that you find is very helpful in helping your patients"?
I mean, I would go back to it's funny, I've kind of did a little bit of a deep dive into gut health these past couple weeks, and it does like that seems different than hormone health, but I have found tremendous connections between it all, and just from my personal story as well. And I feel like that is kind of where I would push people to look for of where that is, because there's so many, just the lining of the gut, and the whole thing of a leaky gut, like that is real. Like there's a lot of toxins that can get out and then wreak havoc on different parts of the body. So coming back, I think, to that is can help a lot of people before looking at like all these other medications and supplements. So I think that is really cool and fascinating, on top of optimizing the hormones. So that would probably be mine.
Yeah, we have so much to learn. Gut health is like, and
Yeah,
I'm so happy I have Sabine Hazen. By the time this one comes out, I'll have her on. She's a gut microbiome
yeah.
expert. This is what she does, Progenibiome. She's awesome and a
Mhm.
warrior. So yeah, those kind of things I agree. It's like so much that we bypass. Like, okay, we got to fix this. You can't take your car to the shop and it's not running. They go, we'll just put new tires on it and it will run fine. Well, the tires aren't the problem. The motor's the problem. And your
Yeah.
spark plugs are out. Sometimes you have to look at different things, and they're not dramatic things you have to do, but let's tweak this, let's tweak this, let's tweak this, and see how your car runs. Is running okay? Great. We don't have to do, we don't have to change your engine.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think that's what's amazing what you're doing with the hormone stuff. So I'm happy to have you in my practice. Go talk to Leah about that. I'm not talking about it. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't get it. I could fix this over here. I'm good at tires and rotors or whatever it is, but transmission, I don't know anything about. So let the transmission expert take care of that. And I think it's great that we could work together. And so many of our patients, we see the benefits from both ends,
Oh,
and you see people
totally.
getting
Yeah.
healthier, and you go, this is fun. This
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. And that's like been one of my favorite parts is like seeing the both sides and how they correlate so well together because it's like fixing somebody as a whole rather than just one, a whole body versus just fixing your arm, it's makes such a difference.
Yeah, and if someone's plateaued for a while and they're struggling, they're trying to do stuff, and obviously we're talking about stress and all these things, and it's amazing.
Mhm.
We've both seen it. I've shown you the tracings of people that are on vacation, their sugars normalize and they lose weight, and they're like, "I was eating bad food." Yeah, but you weren't stressed every single second of the day. So I hope
Mhm.
that gets out to people listening is that the importance of stress, sleep, being a nice person, laughing a little bit more. People ask me why I smile all the time. I'm like, what am I going to do? Be grumpy, and everyone's going to like you get back what you give out into the world a lot of times, you know.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
so many people whose hormones are off are on edge. So I look on Twitter, I'm like, oh yeah, that person's mean to everyone. Yeah, their hormones
Yeah.
are probably off, and they're probably not like really in good
Yeah.
relationships at home and all that. It
Yeah.
comes out,
Yeah.
the
No,
fruit comes
totally.
out.
Yeah, I was listening, I think I was listening to a podcast or a interview or something, and this lady brought up such a good point that when you like this new fad of like a Karen, like the kind of the edgy
Getting
middle-aged
everyone's face, tell them what to
women.
do, and like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And you look at them, and a lot of people that are associated with that name, in that way, are women in that or menopausal, postmenopausal age when their hormones drop off and they're physically unable to get them
You
back
can't
up. And
emotionally deal
so
with it. Yeah. And
yeah.
your
And
sugar,
so
your
it's
brain's inflamed from sugar, and you got all
for
this
sure.
stuff, and you're like drinking to calm your nerves, and all
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
it makes such a difference. So, just knowing that there's other things that can contribute to those feelings and mood fluctuations and anxiety and all that is important.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
just taking a breath sometimes and going, okay, I'm not going to worry about this. And I have people I take care of. They're just that aloha spirit person. There's like, whatever. Like someone yells at them and they're like, all right. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna be like that. Those people live forever. They just go,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna let you work. Other people are like, did you hear what that person said 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Let it
Still hanging
go,
on
move
to it.
on. Yeah, let it go. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of that too. So since it's life's best medicine, the question I have to ask you is like, what's
Oh,
life's
yeah.
medicine for you? What makes Leah get out of bed in the morning? What makes you, where do you go when you go through hard times? What's your
Yeah.
life's best medicine?
Um, so I would say that I have developed this mindset of having non-negotiables in my day, of just having things that make me come back to what is really important. And so and it's not something that's like hard to reach. Like I'm not saying, oh, Leah, go run 10 miles every day, because I'm not going to do that every day, but having like very specific things that I do every day that I know helps me in ways like mental health, like nutrition, like uh hanging out with friends, community, things like that. So for me that looks like I am not the best at drinking water, which is, we could do a whole nother episode on hydration. But so one of my non-negotiables, I get up and I chug a lot of water, because my dad has always said to me, you are dehydrated in the morning because you haven't drank in 8 hours, which is true. But so that's one of mine. And then I set my alarm half an hour early before I need to actually wake up, and I do my devotional, because I think a lot of people know that I'm a Christian here. And so that's another one. And then just some sort of movement, whether that's like a quick walk or just stretching or something like that. And it's really changed so much for me since I've started doing those. So that's, I guess, my life's best medicine right now is like picking a few non-negotiables that you do every day, no matter what.
Yeah, I think that's so awesome. I think that's like people don't realize devotionals and spending time with God and going, okay, I'm not going to get worked up about stuff today. I'm going to put it on you a little bit. And, that,
Yeah.
that piece of that brings people can't understand that. That's kind of one of the reasons I started this podcast. Like
Yeah.
when people will just say it doesn't do anything. Well, I know a lot of people it does. I know a lot of people have been through
Yeah.
hard times and gone through a lot of stuff. And, it's saying, let me drink water. Let me take care of myself. Let me be balanced, because I'm telling you, I've been a
Hmm.
doctor all these 20 years now, and so many doctors are so out of balance that they can't think, they can't have new
Yeah.
ideas that they have to think about. They're like in, out, in, out. I'm a machine. Here, let me see how efficient I can be. And I
Yeah.
in the last week, I talked to 5 doctors who said, get me out of this system. So
Yeah.
doing what
Yeah.
we're doing, you say, this is fun because I'm not going to burn out when people are getting better and they're enjoying life and, and you're
Right.
and feeling good about yourself and not like, you know,
Yes.
I need caffeine to get through this day. I need a cookie to deal with this jerk patient, those kind of things. I think
Totally.
that's a huge thing is getting recentered, however that is for you. You could be
Mhm.
doing puzzles. It could be throwing rocks at
Yeah.
a lake. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was out on a hike and, I was in Arizona on a hike and the lake was frozen. And so someone throws a rock. It was like, what do I, and it made this really cool sound when it hit the frozen lake, right?
Yeah.
That was like, let me throw one. Let me throw it. Like we're like little kids throwing rocks at the lake and they're all sitting on top.
Uh-huh.
We had a blast. And we walked by and
Yeah.
there's this 80-year-old guy throwing rocks on the lake because he was doing the same thing that we were like, that's funny
Oh my
because it
gosh.
it's just something you don't see every day, right?
Right.
So
Right. No,
anyways,
totally.
just do things like that, dumb stuff that is just enjoying life that's not hurting other people. And it's great. So Leah,
Yeah.
how do people track you down?
Just you can find me at San Diego Metabolic Health and Direct Primary Care.
She's
But
stuck with me, San Diego Metabolic Health. And trust me, if you call us, don't say, I want doctor to run my hormones. Trust me, I'm telling you straight up, let Leah do it. I can work with her. We work together on everything and we
yeah,
consult
yeah,
all the time and we enjoy each other. And it's a great fit. And we have Mary who knows more about holistic medicine and gut health than any of us. Or like Mary, what do we, our office
oh my
manager,
gosh, yeah.
she's an expert in this stuff. She's dealt with all of this stuff. So it's great. Leah, it's
Mm-hmm.
great to have you. Thanks for joining me. This is fun. And I'm glad
Thanks.
we could talk about my deficiencies and hormone understandings and that you can along and balance us.
Yeah, no, it's been so great. Thanks for having me again.
All right. Have a great weekend. Be ready
Thanks.
for Monday. We're going to work hard next week.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Just kidding. Everyone, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. I hope this speaks to you. If you're stressed and tense and worried and you're type A and all your clothes have to be in the right order and you have to have the right shoes and you got to buy the new car and you got to get the new iPhone. So let's just take a breath and go, am I okay? I'll tell you,
Yeah,
this struck me. As I had mentioned earlier, I talked to a guy who was a multi-millionaire and
yeah,
he goes, I don't have joy in life. And he said, how can you go? And he's traveled to the third world as have I. And he said,
yeah.
how can these guys be sitting there with no shoes and they're smiling and happy
You're
and
so
enjoying
happy.
life? And I'm
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
they have a different perspective, right? So all about perspective. So if you're
Yeah,
grumpy and agitated, get a different perspective, get your hormones replaced if you got to, take
yeah.
out the processed food and the junk, and you'll be shocked at how well you feel.
So shocked. Yeah, definitely. We see every day.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information. And hopefully this helps you. Have a great day. And thank you for listening. And thank you for your support.